Hello and welcome to another edition of the Dribble Drive. It is Friday, October 31st. It's a spooky day, Dalton, because the season is sneaking up on us. It is just a couple of days away, and because of that, we're doing a special episode. This, by the way, is going to serve as next week's episode. We're going to give Dalton and I an opportunity to dive into our team's opening weeks, take the whole week, and then we'll jump back in a week from Monday. So that'll be the 10th of November will be our next episode. We'll have a lot to talk about. That might be a 3-hour show if Baby Shetler will allow us. We're going to go 3. No, I'm just kidding. But we will have plenty to talk about on our next episode. But again, no episode on Monday because that's opening day. We're going to let you enjoy basketball, watch it, enjoy it. There's games all week long. We're going to take them all in and then have all the hot takes of who's going to win the national title on November 10th. But if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. This is the Dribble Drive. We are on the Back Home Network YouTube channel. Subscribe there to stay up to date on when we go live. Our goal is to go live on Mondays as often as we can this season. Again, we are both broadcasters and traveling circuses here. So we will try our best to go live so you can jump into the comments and the chat and be a part of the show with us. We love that. We're going to throw questions on the screen if people are in the chat and want to ask questions to us. We want to do that. We want this to be an interactive podcast. So as much as we can, we're moving it from Tuesdays to Mondays. Monday at noon Eastern time. We're going to try and go live as much as we can. If we cannot go live, we'll post an episode sometime Monday. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on that. And where can you do that? Dribble Drive WBB on X. We're going to keep you up to date on all of our episode schedules there. If you're an on-the-go podcast person, that's fine too. We've got it on Spotify and Apple. Leave us a review, download the episodes. All that stuff helps us get better and improve the product. Dalton, this is our season and week 1 primer episode is how I'm titling it. To be honest with you, Dalton, not a whole lot going on day 1 in terms of high-level basketball, but I don't know about you. I'm just excited to see basketball on my TV.
You can you smell the popcorn popping, you hear it, you see the bleachers start filling up, you hear the ball bouncing against the floor, the rims clanging, the net swishing. Everything just kind of nostalgia brings you right back, right? And we're there now. It's time for the season. It's so exciting.
It's very exciting. The unfortunate thing is that seasons begin at the same time for the men and the women. So no women's Big Ten games will be on Big Ten Network on that opening day. So you will need Big Ten Plus or potentially however else these games are going to be streamed. Doesn't look like they're all on BTN Plus.
To your favorite radio personalities.
That's exactly right. You can listen to your favorite radio personalities, which neither one of us will be on the air because we know we're your 2 favorites. We won't be on the air on that opening day. Did we lose Dalton? Are you still there? I think we might have lost him. Oh, he's back. He's chuckling.
I hear you now. You got me?
I got you. You're coming in a little bit.
Here we go. I think he's coming back.
This is what we get when we record these episodes, trying not to make any cuts in them. We just roll through the glitchiness of our Wi-Fi's. He's back. He's with us. Neither one of us are in action on opening day. Or no, you are.
Back up to speed. Okay.
Nope, the men are. The Michigan State men are. Neither one of us, our teams, are in
Tuesday.
action.
I'm November 4th.
You're Tuesday. Same. Okay, so we're both Tuesday. So you can listen to our lovely voices on the radio on Tuesday. Monday, here's the slate. I'm going to read it off to you. I don't have a graphic for it. Nebraska hosting Northwestern State. Nice and early, Dalton. How about a 1 o'clock start for that one at Pinnacle Bank Arena? Penn State's hosting Bucknell. Cool one about this, it's at Rec Hall. That's their smaller gymnasium there on campus. They usually have a couple of games there. Crowd really fills up for that. It's a cool aesthetic. So Penn State will start their season at Rec Hall against Bucknell. Number 10, Maryland hosting Loyola, Maryland. That's at 7 o'clock. Wagner is at Rutgers at 7 o'clock. Fairleigh Dickinson is at Purdue at 7 o'clock. Southern at number 21, Iowa at 7:30. Seattle at Washington at 8 o'clock. West Georgia at Oregon. What a trip for West Georgia to open up the season. They go out to Eugene at 9 o'clock, and then San Diego State is at UCLA at 10 o'clock. So games from 1 to 10, they're going to take you all through the day. If you are sitting there thinking, well, it doesn't sound like a very great slate of games, it's not. But our teams are in action, and that's what matters, is we're going to watch basketball. If you are looking for like those France games, looks like Baylor Duke is going to play in the Paris France game at noon. So, and then Cal and Vandy is the second game of that France doubleheader. So, not involving Big Ten teams. Last year involved 2 Big Ten teams with UCLA and USC. It will not involve them this year. Dalton, I figured since those are not like the high-profile Week 1 games, we're not necessarily going to break down Northwestern State women's basketball. I figured we could use this episode to give us an opportunity to talk about what we're excited about for the season. Does that work for you?
Oh. That certainly does. The only thing I'll point out, too, as long as my internet minute, Purdue Fairleigh Dickinson. Of course, that brings back some nightmares for Boilermakers fans.
Yes, it
of
does.
The NCAA tournament, which, Austin, I've told you, by the way, my family, my wife's cousin, was the coach for Fairleigh Dickinson in that upset, has since moved on. But yeah, so that's a fun little tie to get the season going on the women's side.
That is very cool. I forgot about your family ties to Fairleigh Dickinson. That is that's going to bring up some nightmares for Boilermaker fans for sure. Hey, let's run through. Dalton and I came up with 6 storylines we are excited about for this upcoming season. Some talking points for us here on the episode. We'll start at do you want to start at 6 or 1, Dalton? You want to go up or down?
Let's go from 6 to 1. That feels right.
From 6 to 1, and these are totally arbitrarily ranked. There's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason behind them. But here is number 6. Similar faces in new places. So a lot of Big Ten faces are now in different Big Ten locations. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Yarden Garzone going Indiana to Maryland. Kyomi McMiller going Rutgers to Penn State. London Jones didn't have to move too far. She went UCLA to USC. 2 Washington Huskies. Avery Howell goes USC to Washington. Yulia Grabovskaya goes Michigan to Washington. A lot of UCLA's depth pieces have transferred out. I'm thinking about a Zania Soku Nguyen that goes to Indiana. I'm thinking about Oregon picking up one of them as well in the form of Avery Kane. So there's a lot of movement around the Big Ten within the conference itself. And I think that's a big storyline for this season. It looks like we might have lost Dalton again. So we're just going to keep talking here and see if we can get him back into the show. But again, similar faces in new places. I think that's a big storyline this year. And one of those is Yarden Garzone, who was named a preseason All-Big Ten performer. So I think there's high expectations for a lot of these players. The reason a lot of us are high on Washington are those 2 additions that they made within the conference. And Avery Howell, who I think a lot of us were excited about what she was doing at USC off the bench there down the stretch of the season. And then Yulia Grabovskaya, who is kind of the piece that Michigan was missing coming down the stretch of the season. Dalton's back. Looks like he's going to try a new technological device here.
Oh, gotta love live stuff, right?
Speaking of similar faces in new places, Dalton in a new angle here for us.
That's exactly right.
So we're just kind of running through some of those faces that have changed spots within the conference. I think Yarden Garzone's the headliner, Dalton, but do any of them stand out to you as somebody who could be extremely impactful at their new spot?
Well, and I apologize, obviously, for the technical issues to the listeners. But, I mean, I think Yarden Garzone's a big one. Don't know if you already touched on London Jones going across town is going to be a huge one to keep an eye on. Both you and I were really interested. I think Avery Howell's going to have a huge impact in Seattle at Washington. Yulia Grabovskaya being a front court player. One of the ones that's
one in your neck of the woods, too. Rashunda Jones going Purdue to Michigan State.
I was going to say, with Rashunda Jones coming to Michigan State, I think that one is going to be really interesting because if you've paid attention to what Robin Fralick's done in the first couple of years, now you're entering year 3 of the Robin Fralick era. It's a team and program that likes to pressure the ball and likes to get up and down the floor. Look, in the non-conference, I think Michigan State women's basketball for a first couple of weeks might be averaging over 90 points a game. They're going to try and create steals. They're going to get down on the other end. Last year, they set a new program record, new school record for the most steals ever recorded by the Spartans in history. And Rashunda Jones fits that mold. She can be towards the front, pressuring the ball, taking up passing lanes, can be really aggressive defensively, and she can set the table and run things offensively. At Purdue, she was asked to do a healthy amount of the scoring, too, just because there weren't as many weapons. She can still score, but she's not going to be asked to do as much at Michigan State, so that will be fun to watch. The other one, I don't know if you touched on yet, Kiyomi McMiller. Look, yeah. we all saw the talent on display. Can Carolyn Keeger and Penn State tap into something there on a consistency basis that Kiyomi wasn't able to get at Rutgers for whatever reason? I think that will be interesting. But nonetheless, to your point, there are not just similar faces in new places, but highly valuable and significant similar faces in new places.
A couple of them that I missed. Aaliyah Guyton from Iowa to Illinois, I think could be an impactful one there in Champaign. Nebraska has a couple of them. Haley Weaver didn't play last year for Northwestern, but she comes from Northwestern to Nebraska, and Emily Fisher from Maryland to Nebraska. And then Michigan adding Kendall Dudley from UCLA, again, a part of that kind of bench piece kind of exodus that took place at UCLA. They bring back all their starters outside of London Jones, but a lot of their bench is now spread around the Big Ten, with Soku and Guman in Indiana, Dudley going to Michigan, Kane going to Oregon. So we'll see if any of those Oregon or UCLA transfers pan out in their new spots. There's a lot of in-conference transfers, more than I would have thought, but that's where we live right now, Dalton. And I think they're all going to be. I think the London Jones one is an under-the-radar one, especially without JuJu Watkins now. A ball handler who has played high-level basketball, I think, is going to be a very comforting presence for Lindsey Gottlieb and USC, somebody who knows the Big Ten. And I think, especially without JuJu, that's such a massive pickup for USC.
Oh, I think you're spot on. And I think when you talk about integrating her with, say, Jazzy Davidson, Kennedy Smith, that's still there. It feels like you've got a lot of players that have long-range scoring capabilities. And when you start spreading those shooters around, it's going to be really interesting to see. I think you're right. I think we probably should have made more noise about it over the summer because it feels like a bigger deal than the attention it's garnered. But I think it's a really nice fit for the Trojans to have London Jones there.
There's something about those West Coast transfers, because the Gianna Neepkins one has also gone under the radar for UCLA.
And that one makes no sense. Maybe it's just because even without Neepkins, I think we would all be making the argument that UCLA's the preseason favorite with just Betts and Kiki Rice. So, maybe that's why we haven't paid attention to it. But Gianna Neepkins at UCLA is the biggest deal there is.
Yeah, and we're going to get to UCLA. I promise. They are one of our storylines. You could probably guess on a ranking of 6-1 where UCLA fits in on the storyline ring there. Storyline number 5. Who emerges from the pack? Last season, there was kind of a peloton in the Big Ten. Like this group that just stuck together. And when you look at the standings from last year, it was so tight coming down the stretch. I remember joking with you because I had created this massive scenario spreadsheet where Indiana could have been anywhere from 4 to 11 with a week of games, only 2 games left in the season. It ended up being that there were 7 teams at either 11-7 or 10-8, plus Washington at 9-9. So there were 8 teams within 2 games of each other there in the middle of the conference. So my question this year is, who emerges from the pack? I think last year you'd probably say Maryland was the team that kind of emerged. We weren't totally sure what we were going to get from Maryland last year with Kayleen Schmeichel. We thought she would be good. And it all worked. All the transfers hit last year. They started that season with the incredible run, being undefeated for a long time. And so I think Maryland would be the team that you'd say, yeah, they emerged last year from the pack and got that 3 seed in the Big Ten tournament. This season, it feels like UCLA is on its own. It feels like then there's a group to us, different than what we saw from the coaches and media. But to you and I, the next group is Michigan, Maryland, Michigan State in some order. Maybe USC's in there as well. And then I think there's a bigger group there with Washington, Minnesota, Nebraska, Ohio State, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Oregon. That's like 9 teams. Who can emerge from that pack in your mind, Dalton?
Well, I think what's really interesting about that, because really you're taking a look then, if we give USC with the tier you mentioned, Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State, which is fair. The pack then is 6 through 13 for the Big Ten. You rattled off some of those teams, and they all, as we've went through the season preview throughout this offseason, they all have certain strengths that give us a vote of confidence in, but pretty big question marks as well where we have concerns. And not that we need to go through all of them, but you wonder about, okay, for Iowa, can they take another step in Jan Jensen, who had a good first year where they found a way to kind of 180 and right the ship halfway through that Big Ten season? The Hannah Stolke's back. Kylie Feuerbach is back. Nebraska, what does life look like without Alexis Markowski? Can Britt Prince create enough plays to put Nebraska in that conversation? Ohio State, can Jelani Cambridge just take and blow by everybody in the Big Ten with her speed to bolster the Buckeyes to that different conversation? Minnesota, what do they look like without Mallory Hire in the recent news? And can Mara Braun stay healthy, which I know is stepping on and spoiling a future story that we'll be having. But nonetheless, they all have such big question marks. I kind of have a hard time, Austin, in trying to figure out which one I would feel most confident in from that 6 through 13 pack, just because they all have such big question marks, but you know it's possible that any of them, and somebody is going to emerge from that. But it is hard to guess right now. Who sticks out to you?
Yeah, I think to me, I think the highest ceiling, Dalton, and this may surprise people, is Illinois. I think if they hit on this young class, they could be a really good basketball team because they bring in one of the best freshman classes in the Big Ten. They bring in a couple of good transfers that you and I are high on in Maddie Weber and Aaliyah Guyton. And they bring back not a ton, but Barry Wallace, who had a great year last year, Gretchen Dolan, Letty Vasconcelos, who we think is going to be a really solid big for them, who's going to have to get her sea legs under her. But I think if it pans out, Illinois could be that team. Now, I think the safer bet would be Washington or Minnesota.
I just was going to say Washington. I was trying to run through the 6 through 13 in my head. Yeah. I like Washington, but continue on.
Washington's got Ella Dean, Savia Sellers, Hannah Stein, some other bench pieces back. They add the aforementioned Avery Howell and Yulia Grabovskaya. They've got a good freshman class coming in. I think they're the safest bet. But I think if you wanted to have some fun, you could look at Illinois and say, that team could really pan out. One thing to note on Nebraska, you mentioned them. Natalie Potts not playing yet. Just something to throw out there. She's still coming back from that ACL injury. Did not play in their exhibition game. There's a story on SI.com from 3 weeks ago that said she still had not yet to be fully cleared for practice. Now, a lot can happen in 3 weeks. She might be practicing at this point. Did not play in the exhibition game. Another one is Allison Widener, expected to redshirt this year. That poor girl has just had
been through
injury after injury. She's hoping to return next year. But just a couple of Nebraska notes there. We didn't touch on a couple of the other teams. Oregon, a team that, again, is kind of resetting this year. They lost a lot of their players from last year, but they go into the portal. They get Mia Jacobs from Fresno State. Coach Graves was really excited about Avery Kane coming over from UCLA. So they could be a wild card. He wants them to be able to score more this year. Indiana, I got to see them firsthand on Monday, first time in an exhibition game. And they're going to be they're going to look a lot different than years past Indiana. This is a team that's going to want to run the floor a little bit more, but most different than normal is this is a more athletic Indiana team. So they're going to pick teams up full court. Nevaeh Caffey got the start, true freshman at point guard. I think she could be an all Big Ten defender come season's end. And I'll be curious to see how Indiana pans out as the season goes on. I think their upside is really high. I think that's a riskier pick, though, for them to jump higher up just because of the amount of unknowns. And Indiana's an extremely young team. The starting lineup they used in the exhibition game, they had a freshman, 2 sophomores, a redshirt sophomore, and then a senior. So a very new and young team with their first 3 off the bench all being underclassmen as well. So this is just a really young team that's going to have some growing pains, but I think they're going to have some moments where they look really exciting. I also wouldn't be all that surprised, Dalton, if they become a little bit like Oregon in Big Ten play last year, where Indiana says, we're going to beat you 65-60.
Sure.
And they're just going to try and rely on a good defensive effort, timely buckets, defense leading the offense, and trying to grind out 10 Big Ten wins. I could totally see that happening. I think that Illinois is my fun guess there because I think that truly if everything hits, they could be special. And I think Washington's the safe pick.
I think that's pretty good analysis. I think I would agree with that. It feels hard because so much of what we're doing is based on what we know. And I feel like we have to explain that every time we do this. And like you're right. Indiana, who knows how far they could climb, but we know Shea Chesky, and there's a lot still to figure out, like from the outside, and just the pieces that are there and how young they are. Illinois, we got to see Barry Wallace. We've seen Leah Guyton somewhere else at Iowa.
Yeah.
And we've heard how good those freshmen are. And I think maybe how highly ranked those freshmen are, we're putting stock into that for them to maybe have even a higher ceiling or more variance than some of those other pieces. But yeah, there's a lot unknown. But to your point, and you framed it greatly, Washington being the safest, Ladine, Sellers, we've seen Gravitskaya, we've seen these players perform at a high level, some at an all-conference level. That does feel like the safest out of that pack.
We know. I'm curious. Last year, this was a weird thing. I felt like I think I might have been projecting a little bit. But I felt like when teams went to the Pacific Northwest and played Oregon first, they just got beat up and bullied by Oregon. And then when they played Washington, they were like, oh, not getting pressed, a little bit looser defensively, and they had great games. I think about Iowa and what they did to Washington, a historic performance from Iowa. Indiana played a rock fight with Oregon, came back, had a great game against Washington. Can Washington avoid that this year and be a little bit better when teams come out to see them, be better on their home floor specifically? A team that I also think is in that safe area in terms of that group of who I think will stand out is Minnesota. And a lot of that relies, the reason I don't go there is because of this question we popped on the screen now. The storyline number 4, can Mara Braun stay healthy? When she was healthy a couple of seasons ago, she was an all Big Ten performer. She was terrific. 19 a game, like just carrying Minnesota, a Minnesota team that was not very good, but carrying Minnesota. Last 2 seasons, she's gotten off to good starts and gotten hurt and missed the seasons. So can she stay healthy surrounded by a now more developed nucleus? Amaya Battle, Grace Groholski, Sophie Hart, Tori McKinney, some transfers and some freshmen added to that mix as well. The other thing, Dalton, and I've talked about, I want to hear your thoughts on it. The other part of the equation that I think gives me the Washington edge over Minnesota is the Mallory Hire departure.
Absolutely.
That's a starter. That was there. You want to look up glue player in the dictionary, a picture of Mallory Hire is going to pop up on the screen. She was a do-it-all player for Minnesota. So I do think that impacts this team, and I do think I would flip in my rankings Washington and Minnesota because of that. Yeah. What were your thoughts on the Mallory? And that we're not getting into the specifics. Obviously, we don't know. But your initial thoughts when you saw the news that she was leaving Minnesota?
Well, the initial thought was just shock.
Yeah.
And I mean, to your point, we don't know all the details of why. But I had a hard time recalling another time we got this close to the season and an integral part of a team left. Like I was trying to think if there's a precedent for this, or if this is as unique and first of a kind as it felt. That was the initial thought. And then I started to think about it a little bit. And you're right. Mallory Heyer was a leading rebounder last year, over 8 rebounds a game. She scored just about 9 points a game. She hit 41 threes, which was nearly second on the team. So she was a stretch 4 that was able to be very versatile, supply a lot of different needs, to your point about how she was such a glue player.
Yep.
My question is, because I like Minnesota, I think this program has been rock solid. I think it's rounded out well with Dawn Plitzowite, even with the absence of Mara Braun the last couple of seasons. But I started to really buy into Minnesota because of the depth. Mm-hmm. And you take away Mallory Heyer, and it starts to shake a little bit the foundation of the belief I have, which is how deep can it go? Because it felt like, really, you got McKinney, Battle, you have Heyer, you have Gracholski, you bring Braun in, Sophie Hart. This is a strong, well-rounded group. You take one player away that's as important as that. I lost a little bit of confidence. I'm not out on Minnesota, excuse me, but I do wonder, okay, you get into the Big Ten where we're talking about maybe 13 teams being in the NCAA tournament, and you've got to win some of these games against the other teams that are projected to be in the field. You lose a player like that, it just kind of lessens the margin of error for Minnesota on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, and I had the same reaction as you, and I started to look at my rankings, and I said, where would I move Minnesota? But then I had the thought of, okay, if somebody is leaving at this unprecedented time, there has to be a reasoning behind it, and part of me thinks that maybe it's because there were some players that were really standing out for Minnesota, maybe the transfers, maybe it's Tori McKinney, that was threatening Mallory Heyer's position, either in that starting lineup, in the rotation, whatever it may be. So to me, I see that and I say, it would seem really strange if somebody just up and left if they were projected to be a starter getting 30 minutes a game.
Yeah.
So to me, it almost, in a weird way, I'm now like, okay, there must be some depth there for Minnesota, because clearly some group of people were pushing Heyer for that spot, or else she wouldn't have left. Now, I still think she's an extremely valuable player, and it will hurt them. And it does, I think, lower their floor a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the ceiling is still there for Minnesota, which is to be a really good NCAA tournament team that can be a top 5 team of the Big Ten.
And I think maybe the way best to put it, because I think that's fair, is we talk about this razor thin pack from 6 to 13 in the Big Ten, and how any given night you're kind of looking for the advantage and you're splitting hairs between these teams. Losing your leading rebounder, who also stretched the floor and scored 9 points a game, it's a hair that you can't really afford if you're trying to be at the top of that pack. I mean, maybe they still can end up doing it, but you get what I mean. It already feels so pressure filled, so tight, this race, and any attrition whatsoever just feels pretty significant for that purpose, I think.
Yeah, when we are trying to look for any small, tiny difference between these teams, that's one that catches our eye and says, ooh, leading rebounder gone a week and a half before the season. So we'll see. They did obviously handle Northern Iowa in a secret scrimmage, but I'm curious what this Minnesota team will look like. Yeah. Let's go up north. I guess Minnesota's north. We're going south from Minnesota or southeast to the Mitten State. Who wins the state of Michigan, Dalton? You are there. You are in the thick of it. Michigan and Michigan State, for you and I, are both top 4 teams in the conference. The coaches and the media said not so fast. They didn't put Michigan State inside the top 5 in the Big Ten, which we both had issues with. Who wins the state of Michigan, Dalton? That could be a big storyline.
Oh, I think it's a huge story. And it's interesting. This past weekend, they met on the football field, and Matt Park, who's the women's basketball voice, was filling in and doing some hosting duties for the football game. And so we were up as Michigan and Michigan State are competing for the Paul Bunyan Trophy. We're up on the 8th floor of Spartan Stadium whispering to each other about the women's basketball season coming up as we're getting into the second half of the ball game, just because we both are so excited about this. I think when you look at the returning group Michigan has, it's one of the best. And honestly, outside of UCLA, it has an argument to be the best. When you talk about Swords, Olsen, Holloway, and then the pieces they've been able to add in and mix in with that, there's a lot of reason to be high on Michigan. For Michigan State, you bring back Grace Van Sluten, who had a big year. And if the summer has been any indicator for what to expect, it's only going to get bigger for Grace Van Sluten. She has been a monster, whether it was in the AmeriCup, where she won gold with Team USA, or whether it's just been in the gym in East Lansing, watching her work, expand her game. She's due for another huge season. Mix in the returner of Theron Halleck, but then you get a blend of transfers as well. You have Jalen Brown, who scored 18 points a game at Arizona State. Rashunda Jones coming over from Purdue. Mara Dykstra transferring in a bit of a stretch four versatile player from Montana State. You mix that in with what has already been there. And the Spartans did get some bad news with Ines Sotelo missing the beginning of the season with a foot injury. That one hurts a little bit, but you get players back like Isa Alexander, who we haven't been able to see for 3 seasons now. I mean, she missed the last 2 for the most part. And then you mix in somebody who started in the exhibition games, and at this point, you kind of have enough proof to believe she's going to be the starter for Michigan State when it comes to the beginning of the season. Kennedy Blair. Kennedy Blair, a couple seasons ago, missed the year under year one with Robin Freilich as a preferred walk-on. She had a foot injury, a stress fracture, missed the season, was a preferred walk-on. Last year, she took a huge jump in the offseason, ends up getting a role and playing some. This year, she's taken another big step, maybe even bigger than what the first one was. And she's put herself in the conversation to be a starter and really get some buckets. Like, she's going to be a go-to option for this Michigan State offense. That's how good she's been during the summer and impressing. And it's not like the cabinet's bare and it turned to Blair. Like, I need to get rid of that narrative right now for Michigan State fans and Big Ten fans. Kennedy has outworked and performed in certain areas to earn this spot in the starting lineup as of now. And that's a really exciting thing for Michigan State. But to your point, Austin, look, Michigan State and Michigan, I know I just did a lot of explaining on both sides, but I think this is going to be one of the best. It's always one of the best rivalries. But when you talk about how you and I had both these programs in the upper echelon, they get to play each other twice.
Yeah,
that's each other's 2 play. I think this is going to be one of the best series and stories to track throughout the entire season, because I think it's going to be a tight race. It's going to be a lot of fun too, because they're not just competitive; they're competitive at the top of the best league in the country, and that's fun.
You know, I was looking at the exhibition score the other day when you guys played Michigan Tech, and I forgot about Emma Shoemate. And she lit it up for 20 points, and she's coming off the bench. I think Michigan State might have the argument to be the deeper team in this comparison. Michigan probably has more of the high-end talent with that trio, that nucleus of freshmen, now sophomores.
But the only pushback I'd give, and not to just push back every time because it's Michigan State, Michigan, and it's intense, Grace Van Sluten, I think, has an argument at the top end.
Oh, for sure.
To your point of, like, there's a collection of that level there.
I think if I were to rank the top 5 players between those 2 teams, 3 of the 5 is Michigan players.
That's fair.
Now, that's without having seen much of Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown could probably work her way in there. Without knowing much about her, it's probably Grace Van Sluten at 1, and then the 3 Michigan players, and then Theron Halleck, probably. And that's probably where I'm going. But it's interesting. It really is. It's going to be a fascinating matchup to watch. You two both won on the road last year in this series. So we'll see if home court serves better for the 2 Michigan sides this year. Let's go way out west to LA and make a stop at USC. What is life like without JuJu Watkins in LA? We've touched on it a little bit with the London Jones edition, and I think that's a very important one that's going to help them with JuJu being such a ball handler. And I thought it was interesting hearing from Charlie Cream last week, and he said USC became so JuJu dependent. Yeah. And it did feel, you think about that first UCLA game, it took one of the all-time performances in college basketball by JuJu Watkins. They didn't have another player make a field goal in the second or the third quarters of that game and still won it. So that was somebody who, it was a generational talent, can put a team on their back and just carry them. They don't have that this year. They do have Kara Dunn coming over from Georgia Tech, a senior, a veteran, 15 and a half a game last year for the Yellow Jackets. London Jones, a veteran, a senior. She's been there, done that. They've got some young talent. Kennedy Smith's going to be a sophomore. They've got Jazzy Davidson, the freshman, the number one in the class. They bring in some younger transfers like a Dayana Mendez, who comes over from Washington State, who's a sophomore, had a nice year for the Cougars. Do the pieces all fit? That's the question for USC. And one of the games, and the game of the week in the Big Ten, Dalton, is USC against NC State. It's Sunday at 3. I didn't put the date on there. Let's put the date on there. But that would help people. The 3 o'clock doesn't help. The date. How about Sunday at 3 o'clock on ESPN? That's Sunday the 9th. And that's in the Allied tip-off in Charlotte. So not a home game for NC State, but in a way, a home game for NC State. So it'll be interesting to see. This is an early test for a brand new USC team.
Yeah, and I think you laid that out perfectly well. And look, I mean, NC State comes in ranked 9th in the country. This is going to be a real test, and this is where we're going to see some real answers right off the bat about this USC group because they were so JuJu dependent. And the other thing too, Austin, we talk a lot about JuJu Watkins, deservedly so. We haven't talked a lot about Kiki Iriafen. That was a first-round pick that is now off that team as well. And Kiki was able to put up a fight against UConn. I mean, USC had the best game against UConn in the tournament, you could say, even without JuJu Watkins. And a large part is because Kiki was so good in that game and so good throughout the season. So you're not only replacing the void of JuJu Watkins, you're replacing the void of Kiki Iriafen. Now you went and got pieces like you laid out. You've got some talent, whether it's from the recruiting ranks of Jazzy Davidson, whether it's Kara Dunn coming over, you still have Kennedy Smith. But we're talking about an earthquake-like void when you're just missing Watkins and Iriafen. Can they fill the gap enough? That's going to be the big question, and why we just have so many maybe questions or concerns. USC can have a good year, but that is just such a black hole of a void left behind. Any team would have a hard time filling losing those two players.
Well, and it's not just them. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's 8 points a game from Rhea Marshall. It's 7.5 a game from Avery Howell. It's 6 a game from Kaylee Heckel. It's 6 a game from Talia von Oelhoffen. Like, this was a team that had a lot of weapons last year. And if you go all the way back to July and go listen to our preview episode with Eli Kleiman, the voice of USC, he mentioned this team got better as the year went on defensively. And they're going to have to be really good defensively this year because they're just not going to score as much as they did a year ago. So if they can become a really solid defensive team and win some games in the 60s and 70s as opposed to the 80s and 90s, that they could really take that step. I don't think this is a Big Ten championship team. I think you and I probably agree on that. But I think they could be a top 5 team. They could get a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. They could be a hosting school in the NCAA tournament if all things break their way. But it's just going to be a different looking team in LA, and they'll get a task, a challenge again with the NC State game Sunday, November 9th, 3 o'clock. And then the next game after that, Dalton, they're calling it on the website, The Real SC. USC against USC. South Carolina against Southern
I love that.
So they're playing for The Real SC. It's at Crypto.com Arena. So that is, again, not a home game, but kind of a home game for the Trojans after playing not a road game, but kind of a road game in Charlotte against NC State. We'll talk about that one next week, but that's 2 of their first 3 games, Dalton, against top 10 teams in the country. So that's going to be, and then they get Notre Dame 2 weeks after that in South Bend, actually a week after that. So over their first 3 weeks, they're going to play NC State, South Carolina, and Notre Dame. What a fascinating start.
I was going to say, I absolutely applaud the challenging of themselves the way they're doing.
Yep.
And if they lose, even all three of them in their competitive, Austin, I'm not out on USC. I think this roster with all the different pieces we're talking about, it very well could take a little bit of time. We need to afford them a launch angle to actually kind of get together and gel. But I do love that they're going to be challenging themselves out the gates the way they are.
And also UConn on that schedule.
Oh my God.
To the Galen Center. So I think that was a schedule that anticipated
JuJu being
Watkins
there, of course.
Being a part of it. But we'll see how it goes for USC. Across town, our number one storyline going into this season, we've waited 40 minutes to talk about the best team in the Big Ten. That's the UCLA Bruins. Is UCLA better this season than they were last season? Now they lost a lot of their depth to the portal. They're trying to rebuild it with freshmen and the portal. But their nucleus, Dalton, is back. The main nucleus is Lauren Betts. And then they surround her with Gabriela Jaquez and
Angela
Dugalich, Kiki Rice, the sister, Sienna Betts, a true freshman coming in. Gianna Neepkins, who comes in from Utah and adds so much to that offense. And then you bring in a couple more freshmen that are international freshmen that could certainly make an impact. And a player that I have not mentioned enough, and I'm so glad that Dave Marcus did in the UCLA preview. Tamia Gardner is back.
Yeah.
Another great role player for this UCLA team. So I think there's an argument, Dalton, and I think I would make that argument that this UCLA team, their record may not be as good as last year because they went undefeated for so long last season, but they might be better than last year.
You know, it's funny because when the question popped up or we started to talk about this a little bit, I'm like, okay. I mean, UCLA was so dominant last year.
We're going full first take here. Like, oh, they better. Yeah.
But upon consideration and further evaluation, I'm with you. I think it's not only an argument you can make, I think it's the argument I would make. When you bring back Lauren Betts, you bring back Kiki Rice, you add in Gianna Neepkins. And again, we have not talked about that enough. Nobody has talked about enough. Gianna Neepkins bringing nearly 20 points a game over to UCLA with some shot creation and shot making that even as dominant as UCLA was, they didn't have last year. So much of their shot creation was dumping into Betts, let Betts go one-on-one. If they double, you kick out to an army of shooters. Now Neepkins, you can toss her the ball too, and she can go get you a bucket if you want, any way that you want it. And Kiki Rice still running the ship. I think the bolster of front court support with Lauren's sister, Sienna, being there, and if everything is as true about Sienna as we believe, I think that's a huge jump. Losing Janiah Barker, is a hit, and a couple of the other pieces too, right? Like London Jones is a hit, but you do bring back Jaquez, you do bring back Dugalich, some of those role players that get the system, and you add in some talent that previously wasn't there. I think the Bruins are better.
I think they might be too. And this is an awesome schedule, by the way, for us as college basketball fans, because they're going to play Oklahoma on November 10th. And let me pull up the rankings here so I give you an accurate situation. Oklahoma's number 6 in the country. So what a great matchup that is early in the season. That's in Sacramento, November 10th. So that'll be our next episode is going to be previewing that game, and it'll be relevant for approximately 8 hours. But we'll talk about that one next week. Then they're going to play UNC 3 days later in Vegas, and UNC is number 11 in the country. So next week might just be an all UCLA and USC episode because they're going to be playing South Carolina and Oklahoma and UNC. Later in the year, they're going to go to the Players Era Women's Championship in Vegas and play Texas, who is preseason number 4. And if they win, they get a second game in that as well. And it's either against Duke, who's number 7, or South Carolina, who's number 2. So there is a world, Dalton, where they play 4 top 11 teams before December.
Jeez, Al.
I mean, again, their record is not going to be what it was last year simply because of that schedule. And by the way, Tennessee on November 30th is number 8. So actually throw a 5th one in there. I mean,
That's
that is
insane.
an absolute gauntlet. And for us as neutrals, it is going to be fantastic basketball to watch.
That's going to be so much fun. Look at the 2 LAs just going out and playing everybody. I mean, you're right. We might extend it to not just the next show being all about USC and UCLA. It might be the entire non-conference might be about these two.
Sorry, other 16 teams. We're just going to move our home base to LA and just talk about them. I mean, what a freaking gauntlet. They're going to play Oklahoma. Then they're going to play UNC, a couple games in between. Then they're going to play Texas. Then they're going to play either South Carolina or Duke. Then they're going to play Tennessee. They're going to play within a 5-day span 3 top 10 teams in the country.
Good Lord.
Within 5 days.
That is so awesome.
Find out a lot about this UCLA team very early in the season.
That's awesome.
Remember, they did go to France last year and win their opening game. Was that Ole Miss that they beat? No, Louisville. They beat Louisville, who was a top 20 team. They beat South Carolina. That was obviously the marquee win of the non-con last year. And then they beat a Creighton team that was down. So they didn't have a whole lot of meat on the bone last season. So this is going to be a whole new thing. And whether they have a loss or two in that opening stretch, I still think they're a better team than they were a year ago.
No, I think you're right. And that's hard to say. They were a Final Four team last year.
I hope that they're ready. They strap up for those. That November is just going to be brutal. 5 top 10, top 11 matchups in November. Honorable mention storyline, Dalton. Just want to throw this out. Give a couple more teams some mentions here. The battle for the final 2 Big Ten tournament spots, I think, is going to be extremely interesting, just like it was last season. Because we've got these 13 teams that we're pretty confident are going to be the top 13 teams in the league. It's going to be really hard to crack that. But Penn State brings in Keomi McMiller. They bring back Gracie Merkel and Mariah Murray. Can they make a charge? And they missed. Remember, they only won 1 Big Ten game last year. It was that stunner against Ohio State. You've got Wisconsin, who we just previewed on Tuesday with John Arias. They've got a new coach and a whole new roster. Can they make a push? Purdue's got an entirely new roster. Can they make a push? Last year for Joe McEwen, Rutgers with a retooled roster. It's going to be, it feels like, Dalton, those 5 teams for the final 2 spots. Wisconsin kind of separated itself a little bit in that group last year and grabbed that second to last spot. Then Rutgers on the final day of the year grabbed the final spot. If I had to go right now, my thoughts are it's going to be Penn State. But then I don't know. Like, I think I'd go Penn State and Wisconsin, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
And I agree with you. I think if we're doing it to date, it's hard to say Penn State isn't one of those two just because of talent alone. We'll see how it all plays.
McMiller works out, they can crack the top 13.
Exactly.
She is a true 5-star talent.
They've got the biggest window out of that group there at that bottom 5. And I'm with you. It's so hard looking at the others because there's been so much change. Rutgers loses Keomi McMiller, but who I thought maybe their workhorse or their star player was Destiny Adams. She's gone. Purdue's in a completely new team, as you mentioned. Wisconsin's got a new team and new coach. And Northwestern had lost so many pieces. They bring back Caroline Lau, but there's not much returning on the Northwestern side to make you super confident. That race for that last bid for the Big Ten tournament will be fun to watch develop.
No doubt. So excited. And I'm glad that they kept that personally.
Same.
I think it provides a little drama coming down the stretch. People are playing for the double bye. People are playing for the single bye. And people are playing just to get into the tournament. So a lot on the line when we get to that final week of February. Wow, we packed a lot there into 50 minutes, Dalton. That is our season and week 1 primer, and it is our final episode that we will record, Dalton, without any basketball that has been played.
We made it through the offseason, but more important, we got basketball, brother. We got basketball here.
So our two teams take the floor on Tuesday the 4th. A plethora of Big Ten teams take the floor on Monday the 3rd. And then our next episode will be Monday the 10th. We're going to get that episode out bright and early so that we can preview that UCLA. That are they playing South Carolina? Is that what it is? No, I'm speaking out of the side of my.
I can't remember.
We literally just talked about it, and I can't. Oh, it's Oklahoma. So they're playing Oklahoma that night. We're going to get that episode out with a little preview of that, a preview of USC, South Carolina. That one. It's the real SC.
The real SC.
We're going to get a preview on that. Some other teams as well, certainly in action. Ohio State's going to be playing UConn pretty soon, so we'll talk about that. We're going to have full recap of week 1, and we will bring back our our power rankings. Last season, we did 10. That was really hard, and I made a graphic for 5 this year. So, Dalton, we're going to get 5. Top 5 power rankings this year. And we'll certainly with a lot of honorable mentions as well. We've also got a 3 stars of the week graphic we're going to put together each week to we used to do like player of the week, freshman of the week. We're going to do 3 stars. We're going to take you to class. We're going to hand out elementary school stars. Here you go. You were an excellent performer this week. We've got some fun graphics cooked up for that as well. Stay tuned to Dribble Drive WBB. I'll be putting some content out there as well. Both just kind of throughout games as we go through the season. And of course, we'll have all our scheduled podcasts there as well. Man, I'm excited, Dalton. We get to call actual basketball next week. We get to watch actual basketball, and then we're going to discuss it next Monday, November 10th. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate everybody. Tell a friend that we're starting college basketball season next week. Come join us, hopefully live on November 10th for our first recap episode of some live basketball. For Dalton Shetler, I'm Austin Render. Thanks for joining us on the Dribble Drive. Enjoy your opening week of college basketball. We'll be back to recap it all on our next episode.